Generating leads through cold email is actually a lot more simple than you think, especially now in 2026. There's so much noise online about what tools to use, whether you should be using Clay to build your lists, whether you should be using AI and Claude Code to scrape the internet and send millions of emails. But the reality is you don't need to go to that extent to see success with cold email. My name's Harry and I run a B2B lead generation agency called Acquired, and we help B2B agencies book qualified sales meetings every single month consistently to fill their pipeline. Now, since I started my career in this space, we've sent well over 5 million cold emails and generated thousands of sales meetings for our clients. And the number one thing I've noticed is that most people overcomplicate it and think they have to do something different to what is actually required in the space. Everyone thinks you need a super hyper-personalized signal-based campaign to see any level of success. And for most people, that is not true. In this video, I'm going to break you down the 2 ways which you can be generating at least 30 meetings every single month, depending on your offer. Now, the first thing that people miss is they tend to give advice for one particular type of offer. There's 2 main types of offer that you could be selling through your cold emails and your cold outreach, and that is going to be demand generation offers and demand capture offers. And the way you create campaigns for both of these will be fundamentally different. Now, most people online, like myself, run lead generation agencies where we have demand generation offers. I can literally go into a business, plug and play our systems, and win them more business like that. I have a case study that I posted literally yesterday or 2 days ago, depending on when this video comes out, where we built a $75,000 pipeline in 4 weeks for our recruitment client. Now, that is an offer that is fundamentally attractive. What business doesn't want to win more clients? Now, the reason why this offer classification is so important is it determines what you need to do in the back end to see the best results with your campaigns. If you have a demand generation offer similar to mine, which is typically a marketing offer, a lead generation offer, or maybe a content offer, effectively something that can directly attribute more sales to the business, that is a demand generation offer. Someone doesn't need to be thinking about sending cold outreach right now for them to be interested in winning more clients through cold outreach. Whereas the other half of it is demand capture offers. And this is where honestly most businesses lie, which is why it's much easier to generate results for a lead generation company than any other type of company. For example, let's say an SEO company, because one is a demand generation, which can create demand out of thin air because the offer is so attractive, whereas the other is a demand capture. The person or the company you're reaching out to needs to be thinking about this in the first place to actually have a need for the service. Exactly the same with recruitment, which is the main industry that I work with. It is a demand generation offer. You can't suddenly get a company to start hiring straight away off the back of a cold email. They need to currently be hiring and looking for new people to add to their team in order to be interested in your offer. So the way you create these campaigns are fundamentally different. I'm going to quickly go over the demand generation side of things. And there's only 3 things you need in order to see success here. And the first one is obviously the offer itself. You need to have a no-brainer, irresistible offer, okay? And something that's unique. Now, especially in this day and age, there's so many people starting lead generation agencies and companies similar to mine, that it becomes quite saturated. So you need to have some sort of differentiation in your offer that could simply be just niching down to a specific space, such as recruitment. This is what I've done with my own agency, where recruitment is really our bag. That's what we're good at, and that's where we specialize. We do work with other types of clients, of course, but recruitment is what we're good at, and that's where we specialize. So that makes us different in that space. And our offer is obviously attractive to recruiters, where we can increase their pipeline and bring them more signed contracts with their clients that are hiring. So the first thing, of course, is dialing that offer. You want to make it directly related to signing more clients / bringing more revenue for the business that you're working with. Okay, once you have the offer dialed in, the only other 2 things you need for a demand generation offer is enough volume, right? You need to be, your TAM is huge usually. Your total addressable market, which is TAM, is massive typically for demand generation offers. You can work with a lot of types of businesses. So volume will be your best friend. You don't necessarily need to have intent signals, which we'll go on to in a second, to indicate someone wants more business. Everyone wants more business. So you don't have to overcomplicate it. With a demand generation offer, you don't need to overcomplicate the workflow. You don't need to do crazy things with Clay to see good results. You just don't have to. That's the raw truth. People tell you do, but you don't. With demand generation offers. With demand capture offers, it's slightly different, and I'll go on to that in a second. But with demand generation offers, if you make the offer attractive enough, you don't need these fancy signals to tell you someone wants it. They will want the offer because it's good enough. Okay, so you need the attractive offer, enough volume, and the biggest thing we've noticed that makes a big difference to our campaigns right now is the speed to lead time on the back end. Okay, if you can be sending enough emails and a decent volume, I would say at least 10 to 20,000 emails a month at a bare minimum, with an attractive enough offer and getting back to leads within 15 minutes of them responding, you'll have no issue booking 30 sales calls a month for your business. That's for the demand generation side. Now, what about the demand capture? If you have a demand capture offer and you can only pitch it to people that have a need for this right now, the core strategy changes, okay? It's going to be less around volume and more around intent-based and signal-based approaches. Volume can also help in this case, and you need to do a lot of volume if you want to see success with demand capture offers, simply by just finding the right people at the right time. But I would say the more important thing here is these signals and these intent triggers. So let's say, for example, once again, you're working with a recruitment agency, or a recruitment agency comes to us and they want to sign more clients. The thing that will work the best for them is, once again, seeing how we can make their offer more attractive. Wherever you're working, if it's a demand generation or demand capture, you can always likely have some quick wins with the offer to make it more attractive. De-risk it for the prospect. Can you work on a contingency basis instead of retained? Contingency meaning upon successful placement, you get paid rather than ask for money up front. This just makes it easier for the prospect to say yes. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the core commercials of the offer. It could even be creating a lead magnet. You know, is there something you can do up front to demonstrate value to get them on that chain of commitment to eventually working with you? So first, again, still working on that offer to make it more attractive. Then instead of just purely relying on volume, you'll need to have signal-based approaches. So once again, with recruitment agencies, what we'll do is we'll find companies hiring. This is the clearest signal that they need a recruitment agency if they're hiring for positions, right? So we can scrape job boards, we can use Clay to do that. You can use other systems and other tools online to scrape companies that are hiring. You know, companies won't always use LinkedIn, for example, to hire. They'll also check their, you need to check their websites and things like that. So there's multiple ways you can do that, but job postings is obviously a good one. Fundraising, companies that are fundraising right now or have just raised funds. Okay, if they've just raised, let's say, their seed or Series A or Series B, they're clearly looking to add more people to the team. They're not just going to raise those funds just to put it all into tech. They're going to need people to operate their tech and people to bring on more business for them, right, to make it an attractive offer for the venture capital firm that has just funded them, right? So you need to be looking at all of these signals and reaching out to those companies as a priority rather than just every company, right? Because it's the thing around, and this is why it's much harder to fulfill for clients if you're a lead generation agency working with demand capture offers, because you need to find the right clients, because you need to find the right companies that have a need for this right now. So you'd want to map out all of these signals. Like I say, job postings, fundraising, senior leadership changes, that's a great signal. If you're working with a company and you want to incorporate, let's say, a new marketing system into their business, if a new CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, has just joined the company, that's a great signal to then reach out to that company, because that CMO is going to want to drive direct impact and make a difference to the company. Okay, another one could be a key employee that's just left. Let's say, once again, you're a recruitment agency, you hire sales managers. You can use the likes of Clay to find sales managers that have just left companies, and obviously reach out to the more senior contact, maybe a chief revenue officer or head of sales, and say, look, I know your sales manager so-and-so just left, we have a replacement, or we have a replacement system. Whatever you're selling, these intent signals will be really important for your demand capture offers. And then, of course, the same thing goes with speed to lead times and everything like that. That's fundamental between whatever offer you're running, right? You need to be following up with leads very, very quickly. But that hopefully should help you understand the shift between cold email is not binary. It's not black and white. It's not like you have a great campaign and it's going to work in every market or for every offer. It doesn't simply work like that. There are some offers that are way hard. There are some offers that are way harder to generate results for through cold email, and these are typically demand capture offers. So what you need to focus on with demand capture offers through what we've seen is these intent signals to reach out to the right prospects that have a need for the service right now, okay? So that it actually makes sense for them. Whereas if you have a demand generation offer, and you can always, make your clients' offers more attractive to push them towards more demand generation, then really the thing that matters the most if you have a demand generation offer is volume. That's the truth. how attractive your offer is, so how risk reversed you can make it for the client, and how much volume you can pump behind it. Those are really the two biggest factors. Whereas continuing to send more and more volume for your demand capture offers, which is the likes of SEO, recruitment, most offers in the business world, just by simply sending more volume, that's not really going to help. You need to really refine the signals and see which signals are strongest to indicate a need for this system. So if you want to learn more about how we do this for our clients and potentially even how we can book more sales calls for your company, whether you have a demand generation offer, a demand capture offer, whatever it is, then we have a link, then I have a calendar link below where you can speak to me and my team. We can discuss how we can help you book 30 sales calls a month. If that sounds of interest to you, feel free to book with us in the link in the description. And if not, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.